Well, for me, I need focus, right? I need focus to do my work. And so setting goals, of course, simply put, helps me to stay focused on the work that needs to be done for the good of the school. But it's also, it's something that drives me. It's also something that energizes me. And the board has been incredibly supportive. It's certainly an expectation of the board, but they've been incredibly supportive of the goals that I've put out there. And right, I mean, on one level, it's to hold me accountable as the president of the school, and I report directly to them, and serve at the pleasure of the board. But it's also an opportunity for the board to figure out, how can they support me in my efforts, and it's really allowed for a unique type of partnership to emerge, this goal setting exercise, because we really do walk together, myself and the board, in accomplishing the goals. And the other thing about my own goal setting is I'll connect with members of my leadership team, those direct reports, I'll gather their goals, and I want to make sure that my goals are also supporting their goals, right? So if the trustees support my goals, walk with me in achieving them, I set my goals in an effort to walk with the leadership team, right, and achieving their goals. It really covers everything in many ways, or many corners of the school. So, and by and large, they're realistic goals. But every once in a while, it's really important to put some aspirational goals out there too, and push yourself a little bit. Well, fundraising is a big one, right? So I would say that in Jesuit schools in particular, I just speak from that experience, the expectation of the president is that he or she will spend a significant amount of time fundraising and stewarding relationships with benefactors, alumni, friends, so on and so forth. So I set specific, concrete fundraising goals for myself, and those specific numbers are in my goals. I need that, right? That drives me, and that in some ways that is a check, right? That's a box that you check. And I think maybe this year I set a goal for myself of raising, I don't know, $6 million or something like that. And that's, cash in the door, as well as pledges and planned giving, all different forms. So that's really concrete. And that's pretty easy to evaluate me on, is that. So I have that in my goals. We have a 10-year financial plan that we developed a number of years ago, and we always revisit it, every year, right? We reevaluate how we're doing, and then we sort of reevaluate, the plan. So another one of my goals, generally speaking, is to make sure that I am meeting the goals of that financial plan each year. And that's anywhere from making sure that our annual tuition increase doesn't go above 2%, managing our operational budget in a way that allows for there to be some type of a surplus at the end of the year. So it's really those two items I've found over the past few years take up a lot of my time, right? And I have to pay attention to that. But then there's another part of the goals that speaks directly to mission, right? In my job in my role as director of the work, right? In doing my part in ensuring that Loyola maintains its Catholic Jesuit identity and everything that goes with that, right? There's some intangibles to that as well. There's cultural elements of that. The board is very keen on making sure that part of our identity remains intact and very public to people. So, I set goals around how to do that, whether it's through programming, with the assistance of the Director of Mission and Identity, his team, the board, and the rest of the school, and the province, and the broader network of Jesuit schools. Well, I think I think what's really important is that your board supports your goals, and as a head of school, president of school, whatever the title is that you have, I think the first step in your goal setting is to work closely with your board chair. If you get support and guidance from your board chair in setting your goals, it puts that person in a better position to support your goals to the whole board. So that I found that really important. I've worked with a number of board chairs, and that relationship and that partnership is critical to the success of the school, but it's also critical to the success of the board as a governing body. If the two of you are together right out of the gate, there's not a whole lot that will derail the efforts. It's when the board chair and the president are not talking, are not aligned publicly, that things splinter and things become really complicated. So that, I would say, yeah, that is the most important thing. Setting goals, talk to your board chair first before you talk to anybody else. You get that person's support and buy-in, I think you're in good shape. Board goal setting doesn't come naturally to boards. I don't see it happening a whole lot. I don't think I've come across any school that has as a perfect example of how they do that. I think a lot of the ways that where it really takes shape is in subcommittees. Subcommittees set pretty clear goals for themselves. So that's where I would see it happening. So that is reflective of the work of the board, but it's done at a subcommittee level because it's super hyper focused on a particular area of the school. So it's much easier to do it that way. Yeah, so I really haven't seen any school who've really captured this whole like broad board goal setting process. Yeah, I mean the strategic one is the biggest one because I would say that the generative way of thinking as well as their fiduciary responsibilities fall within the strategic plan too, and I would say that the most important thing in order to achieve all three of those is for the board to understand that they operate above the fray, right? They operate above the noise. It's critically important that the trustees are made aware early on in their tenure on joining a board of the role of a governing body versus the management body of the school, right? The board chair is the one who reminds the trustees that as a governing body, they operate above the fray, right? They have a fiduciary responsibility, right? They have a responsibility to ensure that the strategic plan and the strategic of the vision of the school is being played out, right? Is being implemented. And they also like to get into like conversations on some generative thinking, right? That could be bold, could be ambitious, could be aspirational. But again, really way above the noise of the day-to-day operation of the school. And then it becomes our responsibility as management of the school to take all of that under advisement and turn it into sort of a tactical approach to the work that we do here. The best way to explain it is this. Each board report that I do, we have 5 board meetings a year, and in my board reports, I'll give updates on how am I doing with my goals, and that's my one way of keeping the board updated on how I'm doing. And then that my year-end evaluation, they'll take the board will solicit, the board chair and the nominating governance committee will solicit input from the rest of the board on how they think I did in achieving my goals. But most of those updates also take place in conversations via subcommittees as well. But I'm constantly talking about it and keeping them updated. That's a good question. I would say that that's still evolving. I would say that we're still trying to figure that out, and I wouldn't say that there's any formal mechanism in place right now to assess that. They're open to that. They know it has to get done, but I wouldn't say that we're quite there yet. The closest we get probably now is when we look at the current strategic plan, and we're building our next strategic plan right now. The board uses that also as the strategic plan initiatives and goals therein as their own guideposts and markers along the way. And we have a strategic planning committee, which gives reports at every board meeting that sort of identifies how we're doing in those areas.